Katie and Michael, have you come here freely, without reservation, to give yourselves to each other in marriage?
We have.
Marriage is reaffirmed each time a man and woman choose to make each other husband and wife. Its foundation is a human reality as ancient and honorable as any on earth.
Would you love and honor each other as man and wife for the rest of your lives?
We will.
We will.
I now pronounce you, Hank and Jeff, husbands for life. Congratulations.
But now the very meaning of marriage is being challenged in ways that will dramatically impact each and every person in society. A powerful legal, cultural, and political movement is seeking to change the public and legal definition of marriage. What will happen to marriage, to children, and to Catholics in our institutions if judges and politicians are allowed to redefine marriage? One man, one woman, marriage and the common good. The health and vitality of marriage and families is a top priority for experts like Princeton University professor Robert George. Dr. George sees potentially devastating consequences if we fail to protect marriage.
Children need a mom and a dad. Both boys and girls benefit when they have the influences of parents of both sexes, a mom and a dad, not two moms or three moms or two moms and two dads or anything like that. The original and best Department of Health, Education, and Welfare is a man and a woman coming together, uniting their lives at every level of being, and then rearing the children that come as blessings.
Spin the globe. For thousands of years in hundreds of diverse societies, marriage is celebrated as the way a man and woman come together to make a family, to make the future happen. Marriage plays a unique and crucial role. Only through a marital union does husband and wife create new life. Life that connects children to their mom and dad. This is part of what marriage means and why it is a social ideal in this and virtually every known human society.
If we want fathers to be around to care for their children and to care for the mothers of their children.
As a young single mother during the 80s, Maggie Gallagher experienced firsthand how children suffer when they lose either their mother or father. Gallagher says accepting same-sex marriage raises other profound questions about marriage and why it matters, especially for our children.
A culture which teaches that it doesn't matter whether children have mothers and fathers, that marriage is just one of many different family forms, and equality requires that we no longer care about this vision of marriage, is a society that becomes callous and indifferent to the suffering it imposes on its own children and on women who are left to carry the burdens of parenting, and on men who are fundamentally dehumanized by being told that they're not necessary to the great human project of making and raising the next generation.
Same-sex marriage is not about what people do in private, says Gallagher. It's about what the government will teach to our children and our grandchildren in public schools and in the public square.
This is the argument that they're trying to get our government to endorse, okay? There's no difference between same-sex and opposite-sex couples, and if you think differently, you're the equivalent of a racist. You're a bigot in the public square.
It's about civil rights.
The political argument that same-sex marriage should be a civil right is deeply troubling to Damon Owens.
It just doesn't wash. It's one of those things that sounds good, but it's not good in sound. You scratch the surface and you realize there's nothing there.
As a committed advocate of social justice, Owens says America's great civil rights leaders offer valuable insight into this crucial issue.
I would go right back to the manifesto of the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King himself, when he wrote his letter in the Birmingham jail, Dr. King talked about a just law. And he says that a just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. To put it in terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal and natural law. This is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King speaking about what makes a law just and unjust. And when do we resist a law, and when do we accept a law? A strong want or a strong desire doesn't make a civil right. Not all love is the same. There's a love that's between me and my daughters, my 6 little girls. Any of them, that love between them has an appropriate expression or many expressions. And that expression is very different than the love between me and my wife Melanie. And the way that that love is expressed is meant to either edify, meaning build up that love, or it will diminish it. But now in the, quote, naked public square, when we're in the world and we're taking this occasion, this same-sex attraction, and now trying to equate it with marriage, we need to recognize that for that kind of law to be just, in other words, to be right, it must then be squared with the natural law. Otherwise, we must resist it.
Our Catholic faith clearly teaches that marriage is the union of one man and one woman. At the same time, our faith also tells us that those with the same-sex attraction are to be accepted with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. Father Paul Check leads a Catholic ministry called Courage, a national network of chapters designed to help and support men and women who have same-sex attraction live with fidelity, respect, and dignity. What might be called a life of interior chastity?
The most important thing that we want to remember is that every person, and in this case we're speaking of men and women with same-sex attraction, is a child of God. And therefore, the Church approaches them as she does all of her children, with great reverence, with great love, and with great hope. The work of Courage is fundamentally the same of all parts of the Church's work, which is to help men and women to live a holy life.
What happens if we fail to protect the meaning of marriage? Public schools will teach our children that same-sex marriage is okay, instead of respecting the views and values of most parents. The common sense idea that the ideal for children as a mother and father will be redefined as a form of discrimination. And that's just plain wrong. But that's not all. Imposing same-sex marriage through the rule of law poses real threats to the religious liberty of Catholics and people of other faith traditions. Anthony Piccarello is a noted religious liberty expert and the top lawyer for Catholic bishops in America. Piccarello says same-sex marriage laws are
something that could have a very profound impact on traditional institutions like the Catholic Church and its members who persist in that traditional teaching about marriage. If same-sex marriage becomes the law, then those who oppose it increasingly will be viewed as bigots. The law will essentially punish wherever it's possible that kind of speech, conduct, assembly for those purposes.
Other potential risks include professional licenses for Catholic doctors, attorneys, social workers, teachers, psychiatrists, marriage counselors, and others. School accreditations will be threatened, along with the tax-exempt status of Catholic schools and charities. One of the nation's leading gay newspapers recently asked, could churches in time risk their tax-exempt status by refusing to marry gays? Their answer? That remains to be seen, and will likely result in a steady stream of court battles. Legal experts, like law professor Robin Wilson, watch and study the same-sex marriage debate closely. Although she has not taken a public position on same-sex marriage, Wilson is concerned about its impact on the tax-exempt status of religious schools, charities, and other organizations.
And I've been asked whether that's indeed a credible threat. And I think absolutely. We have already seen it begin to unfold in Massachusetts and New Jersey and California. It's absolutely a credible threat to churches that they might be at risk for a torrent of litigation designed to resolve the question of whether they have the duty to facilitate same-sex relationships, especially the wedding ceremonies.
In Canada and other democracies, religious people are being threatened with fines and jail time. Governments are ordering religious charities into so-called re-education plans on marriage and families. Even in America, there are already real consequences. After the Massachusetts Supreme Court imposed same-sex marriage, Catholic Charities of Boston refused to treat same-sex couples the same as unions of husband and wife. The dean of the Boston College of Law then declared, "State puts church out of the adoption business." Can this really happen in America? The truth is, it already has. Will we summon the courage to stand for common sense and God's own truth in these troubled and confusing times?
If you create a situation in which just about anything can count as a marriage, 2 men, 2 women, more than 2 people joined in a marriage, so-called polyamory, the victims will be children who really do need the influence of being reared by a mom and a dad.
So I think the minimum we have to do is be honest about what's at stake. Every person in any state in which adopts gay marriage is going to find that the government's view of what marriage has is going to have an impact on their lives and their institutions.
The stakes in the marriage debate are higher than ever. Decisions are now being made to radically change the very meaning and purpose of marriage for generations to come. The well-being of our children and grandchildren will be directly impacted by whatever happens. If same-sex marriage becomes the law, parents will lose control over their children's values as taught in public schools. The religious liberty of Catholics and other traditional faith communities will continue to erode. Marriage is about rights, privileges, and responsibilities, not only for adults, but also children. Redefining marriage changes everything. When we protect and support marriage, we protect and support our families and children. Now is the time. One man, one woman, marriage and the common good.